What's up? I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast,
where we interview successful businessmen and women to let you in on why success doesn't have a single formula to follow.
We also have a little bourbon tasting along the way, because why not?
Why not?
So guys, please enjoy this episode and let us know your thoughts at Bourbon and Business Podcast on Instagram.
Let's get to it.
Coming to you from the Bourbon and Business Studio here at Edit Media in Memphis, Tennessee, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast. How you doing this morning, Dakota?
I'm great, Tyler. How are you?
I got a little tongue-tied with saying that we're in Memphis and that we're at Edit Media. Yeah. It's got me thrown off.
Well,
so it's messed my routine
up. You made it
up.
through, though, so it's okay.
I know. I stumbled, worked through it, perseverance.
Yep, just like founders have to do, right?
Well, you want to introduce our guest to us this morning?
I do. Today we have special guest Casey Shockey, president and founder of Chief Engineering. Casey, welcome.
Good morning. It's very early in the morning.
It is. It's very early.
Perfect time to start drinking bourbon.
Absolutely.
So, couldn't think of a better time.
Well, with that being said, what are we sipping on this morning?
Today we're sipping on Bowman Brothers. And we've had Bowman Brothers before, but we had their pork barrel. This is their small batch.
Well, I want to say I like this a lot better than the pork barrel.
Yeah, we weren't fans of the pork barrel.
Pork barrel, theirs was good. Mm-hmm. But this, I like small batch much better. I'm going to have to give this a 9.5.
Okay.
So, proof-wise, I think we're coming in at 98?
90
proof. Mm-hmm. Lower than I thought. So, it does have a little burn to it.
It's got some flavor to it for a 90 for sure.
Yep. Well, and we want to thank our sponsors, Cheers Vineyard in Gluckstadt, Mississippi.
Absolutely.
If you're looking to get some bourbon, that's the place to do it.
Yep. JT will hook you up.
Well, Casey, we appreciate you coming on this morning. We like to always kind of start this, just give our listeners where you grew up and then how you got into the industry that you're in right now.
Well, I don't think we have enough time to go through everything, but grew up here in Memphis.
Your entire life story, yeah.
Yep, grew up here in Memphis, went to Carterville High School, went to Ole Miss, and then got into engineering after a passion for aviation. Found out about seniority, and being a pilot didn't mean that if you were the best, you could do whatever you want. So I immediately pivoted into engineering, did a little bit of work while I was in school, and then got out and pursued my career in mechanical. I got licensed in HVAC and refrigeration, and have basically been designing stuff ever since.
Wow. Well, what would you tell, I guess, young listeners that are looking to get into the engineering field? What advice would you give them right now?
Get as much experience as you can. Yes, math is the critical piece of engineering, but also understand the theory, understand how to think through problems, and really understand all the key components that go into problem solving. Engineers are problem solvers. They're not just engineers. They really look at all the challenges and all the complications and bring sense to the chaos. So I'd really encourage early experience to gain that situational awareness that you really need to be an effective problem solver.
Well, and one thing, that piece that you're talking about, problem solving, are you seeing that skill become less and less in the industry now? It is?
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into a diatribe about social media and iPads and whatnot, but the consistency of just, getting a 30-second video time after time after again, or time and time again, doesn't allow you really the time to focus on the problem, communicate with stakeholders or people within your group to really gather the information, analyze the information, and make sound decisions.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because, there was a time period when we all grew up that, there was some lag there. Like if your parents left you at the house for the afternoon, like you had to figure some things out, think through some things. Whereas now you get on Google and it's just like, even to get to this office here today, we put it in Apple Maps and we come here like, we don't even pay attention which direction we're driving. So how to even find
north,
a place.
Tyler.
So, well, I knew that much. So,
I pull out my paper map wherever I go.
Oh, you still use your paper map? So, but yeah, that is, to think about it, because of technology, it is a great thing, but also it does, I guess, take away some of our skills that we had at one time.
Well, I'd say it takes away imagination too, because
creative, critical thinking.
Yeah, I don't think many people think about creativity being a part of an engineer's role, but that is a critical component.
Couldn't agree more.
You have to literally think of something new to solve a problem, right? And so being so logical and math-based stereotypically as a profession, what's your take on using imagination in your careers?
It's a must. I mean, you can walk into any situation with any client on a broad spectrum of price points, and there's a level of creativity that you must have from a problem-solving standpoint, right? Yes, it may seem cut and dry, but then you dig a little deeper, ask some critical questions, and you find out maybe I need to shape my brain in such a way that I look at this from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So creativity is of the utmost importance. I mean, you got to be able to think broad and not narrow. I mean, you'll drill down on an answer and get to that narrow solution, but you got to be able to think across too.
Are there ways to improve that creativity?
Whew. Experience in our industry, the more you get out there, especially at a young age, high school, the STEM programs, getting out there, getting into industry, seeing different varieties of disciplines, mechanical, structural, civil, electrical, I mean, process. You really just need that good depth of understanding, and then you can pick something specific to be involved in.
Yeah.
But having that broad sense really helps the creative process when it comes to engineering. And let me be very clear that yes, there are codes, specifications, and things that you must follow, but the creative problem solving is separate from those, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Once you arrive on that solution, then you bring in all the compliance aspects to make sure it's safe, most importantly, effective, budget friendly, etc.
I feel like if you start from the legality side of things, the compliance side of things, you've really stifled yourself in the solution.
In a way, and that's kind of the cuffs, if you will, of engineering is, yes, you're going to have insurer pushback, legal, corporate, compliance, but you kind of got to understand all that, and that's why it drives me back to having strong situational awareness, knowing the forest for the trees, understanding the macro, understanding the micro, and all the little details that help you in between.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit about what it was like founding your company at a young age.
In my field, nerve-wracking. Engineering is definitely an experience-based profession. So the more years that you have, the more expertise you have, the easier it is. I pride myself on being that creative problem solver, being able to have the social, the communication aspect, the theory aspect, and then the technical detail as well. Much like starting any business, it's a risk.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to say my wife's here. I mean, she understands the risk. We understood the risk. It was just hard, if you will. I mean, you're going out there sticking your neck out, saying, hey, just trust me, I'll make sure you're taken care of. But then they're turned around looking at a 29-year-old. It's like, how much experience could he possibly have? And the thing I got across to people was, trust in me. I'm going to do everything I can to be as perfect as I can for you. Now, nobody's perfect, of course. But if we do make mistakes, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to admit it, and we're going to stand alongside you to fix it. So starting the business, challenging. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
And then as you grow to the different revenue levels, different staffing levels, the complexity, stress, and it just continues to get to different levels of complex and stressful.
Right.
But it's been a wonderful ride. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, and being the business owner, you know, obviously your trade, being an engineer, but also you had to be a business owner. So what did that look like? Was it, hey, I'm working in the engineering space during the day, and then I have to handle the business side at night and weekend? Tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Well, there's working in the business, then there's working on the business. And the beauty of being a business owner is you get to do both 24/7. So generally speaking, you know, 40 to 60 hours a week, especially when you're first starting out, you're doing everything.
Right.
As you grow and you get some accountability in place and you bring in the right personnel for the right seats, the focus still is within the business to some degree, especially on the engineering side. But then on the business side, I mean, it's nights, weekends. I love it when clients say, have a good weekend on a Friday. And I look at them every time. I still do this. What is that?
Yeah.
Tell me about this weekend you speak of. But it
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, right? It's a balancing act. Spinning many plates. The biggest thing I could tell anyone starting a new business is spend some really in-depth time coming up with accountability and some structure, and make sure you come back to that on a quarterly basis, half-year basis, because as you develop, it's a lot harder to do that when you get to, let's say, 20 employees than it was at 5. Now, it's never done, right? But what you consistently want to have is that structure in place as a guiding framework to make sure that when you get to certain stages, you're slowly shifting out of the day-to-day and into more of the president, COO type function. It's just a lot of planning. And as an engineer, I mean, obviously that comes pretty natural to me, but making sure that you're having some rigor and some cadence around strategic planning.
I was going to ask, what is it like being an engineer and having your own company? Do you feel the need to over-engineer it sometimes?
KISS. Keep it simple, stupid,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Naturally, that's my tendency, right? We can be as complex as we want to be in
Sure.
problem solving, but I've got to kind of set limits on myself, right? So if I go in for a budget review, I'm making it 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll speculate, we'll go down rabbit holes, we'll chase squirrels, what have you. But if I keep myself rigid on time constraint, I can normally be more effective
Yeah.
and get the work done that I wanted to get
That's
done.
that accountability that you talked
Yeah,
about.
and
right?
you got to have a lot of that self-discipline and
Yeah.
accountability in yourself. And trust me, I was not perfect with it
Yeah.
from the get-go. This is something I've had to work at and truly learn. I mean, from peers in other industries, from mentors, etc. Getting that personal discipline has been probably the biggest thing I've learned.
I think that's something that separates good founders from great founders, though. And the good founders are willing to put the work in, they're willing to make their business successful, but the great founders are the ones who continue to push. They continue to strive, they continue to clean up that process for perfection. So kudos to you for
Yeah, I mean, it's never perfect. It's
Yeah.
ever evolving. But
Absolutely.
the only concrete thing I know about a plan is it's going to change. Okay?
Great point.
Yeah.
It's going to change.
And I think the KISS method, keeping it simple is such a major thing. I think going back to technology now, everybody has a technology for every process and what we're doing. Like, hey, we can implement this. It's going to make this easier. And in the minds of, I guess, the company, they're like, hey, it's going to be less work. Well, it's never less work. Once
Yeah.
you put a new technology in, then you got to have someone that works on that technology. And a lot of times, the simplest process, the way that it's been done forever, is usually the best method. Now, of course, we can come up with things to make it better, but I think not overcomplicating things, especially from an employee standpoint, when you have people working there, makes the company run a lot better, a lot smoother.
It can. I mean, technology is a challenge. AI, all the data centers for us scanning or 3D modeling, it's complex. To your point, it can increase productivity and add downstream benefit, but the upfront costs are something that people don't often consider. Now, for scanning, for instance, for our company, there were two ways of doing it. Either you go out there with your tape measure and your sheet of paper, and if you're lucky, a distance meter, you sketch everything up, you get all your dimensions, you come back, then you recreate it to be able to start work. With scanning, now we can take this little beautiful toaster out there, hit the button, and let it gather more data than we ever could have captured to begin with. So the on-site time is shorter, the staffing needed is shorter, but the upfront cost can sometimes be a little more expensive because, one, we got to pay for that technology, we got to train on that technology, we got to teach our customers, most importantly, about what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the downstream benefits are. So the adoption of technology over time, in my opinion, is front-loaded.
Yeah.
But the long-term benefits, if you do it right, hire the experts up front who really know what they're doing and know the downstream and the future goal of where people can go with it, that's where the benefit is.
Yeah, for sure.
Where do you see technology going in the next 5-10 years in engineering specifically?
Lightspeed. I don't know. I mean, the quantum computer chip that just came out
That was wild, wasn't it? Was it like this big or something like that?
Yeah,
It was
can
wild.
basically do all the calculations of every computer on Earth or something like that. Sci-fi almost.
I know.
I mean, I think of AI as Terminator to some degree.
Yeah.
We're just training our Terminator, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist or end of the world type person or anything like that. But
I
it's
mean,
just
Sam
odd.
Altman does carry around the backpack, right?
Right.
With the nuke button in it for OpenAI. So
Right. So
the fact that there is that thing should be a little scary.
yes, I mean, I'm not going to say I hadn't sat on the back porch and thought about it, but
Yeah.
that's more for entertainment purposes. But to answer your question, the speed of how quick technology is evolving, especially in our industry and all the tools that are coming out, the AI integrated design and stuff like that. One, we want to utilize it and be a cutting edge.
Reduce redundancies and things like that.
Yeah, and it's value to the client. If I can do it faster, I can also do it cheaper, right? I think it's going to speed up. We've gotten to the point with our heavy assets that we want to purchase. We're not as confident as we were in making purchases because they're changing so quickly.
Sure.
So we kind of got to, again, be situationally aware.
Yeah.
Yes, this one makes sense. Yes, this one makes sense. But, also, when do we see this evolving and changing?
Yeah.
And is the benefit of what we'll get here really better than what we've got already?
Yeah.
So navigating that landscape is extremely important. I mean, we have guys who sit on committees who help develop standards for these things.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Because right now it's the Wild West. And we want to put some structure around it so for the end client, they actually know what they're getting and know what they can expect.
Yeah.
So really in selling the technology side of our business, we spend just as much time educating and making sure people truly understand what they're getting, not only from that first contract, but what that end goal could possibly be,
Yeah.
and getting them prepared to receive it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a very wise thing you said, doing your research on the technology. It's
like
always
waiting on an iPhone.
Yeah.
Like, do I want the 8?
Get one every year.
Is the 9 coming out soon? What's the new features of it, right?
Right.
Right. Well, and I think it's always a great practice, especially for a business. Like, you don't want to be the first adopter of a technology because, like you said, it's going to rapidly evolve to the model that you would want and be able to sustain for a long period of time.
You want to strategically monitor the situation.
Yeah.
Study it, learn it, research it, do your cost analysis, your ROI, and make sure that when you are ready and have validate that as something we need, you're going to be successful both internally and externally.
Well, tell us a little bit about, so y'all work on a lot of large projects. What does a large project look like for y'all?
So to the end client, probably 5, 10 million, 15 million fully installed. A large project for us, we classify it on revenue internally, but really it's when you're doing a brownfield or greenfield type project. So either finding a plot of land and making your paper napkin come true, or taking an existing space within a facility and adding a line, adding a process, sometimes improving a process. But big projects in my mind are you have your ball of clay and you're reshaping it, right? Or you're starting with a ball of clay and making it something new. We pride ourselves on being highly organized, being a partner to the client, and really making sure that, like I mentioned, the situational awareness, that we're gathering all the information, we're taking their vision, understanding their process, looking at opportunities within that process for process improvements, efficiencies, etc. But really reshaping a plant is what our big projects kind of look like.
What do you think is, in your opinion, the most important part of a process? Is it that beginning piece? Is it like the middle piece, or is it the end goal in mind? What's going to be the most important piece there?
Well, my engineering brain says all of it. But in reality, up front.
Up front, that plan?
Just think about it there in a microsecond.
Yeah.
But my gut says up front. And the reason being is that's data gathering, questions, communications, internal, external, stakeholders, really developing and painting that picture of what you're actually going to do downstream.
Right.
And the clearer and more detailed and more specified you can make that upfront effort is going to make all of your downstream processes make more sense.
Yeah.
And that is extremely critical when we're doing major projects.
Yeah.
I mean, we're playing with, and I don't mean to use the term playing, but I like to equate what we do to Legos.
Yeah.
So our Lego brick might be that little 8-block rectangular piece, but it's actually, a $1 million tank or $1 million vessel that we're going to go fly through the air and slide through this little hole. And, oh, by the way, if we damage it, we got to pay for it.
Yeah.
So that upfront critical thinking on, what are we doing? How are we doing it? How is maintenance going to interact with this? How is operations going to interact with this? How is the business case justified for our client to make this type of investment to their benefit long term?
No, for sure. What are some of the biggest challenges you see for like major manufacturers?
Stability, economic stability, and I'm no politician or economic professional by any means, but just kind of that stable landscape to know when they're making these investments, they actually have some type of comfort.
There's not going to be a new policy that comes out that makes your machine obsolete or something?
Again, I don't want to get into politics by any means,
Sure.
but as a business owner, right, even on a small scale, I'm looking 3, 3 years out, 5 years out, 10
Right.
years, and into the future. And when you're dealing with large sums of money, large headcounts, you need to know that the investments that you're making are just. They need to be approved. We need to know that we're going to get that ROI.
Right.
And I think when there is uncertainty, there is a tendency to slow down on spending or reevaluate what we've decided to spend our money on to make
Yeah.
sure we're getting the most bang for our buck. So other challenges is, and this is more on the micro scale within my business sizes, back to the technology piece of
Yeah.
understanding what's out there, what the benefit is. Because yes, we have scanners, we do modeling and whatnot, but the downstream benefit is something that's really going to explode over the next couple years. And what we're positioning with our clients is, yes, we can do everything anyone else can do. That's no problem.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is come alongside you and help you realize those 5 and 10 year goals
Yeah.
by getting you set up to be ready when your company has deemed it appropriate to make that investment.
Yeah.
So
And that's that education piece, right?
education, yes, especially on the technology side. Now, your disciplines within engineering, they're paying us to be the expert, right?
Yeah.
So we need to make them situationally aware, but they're paying us to do a job. We
Right.
need to do it effectively and do it right.
Right.
But on the benefits of some of those, what they might find adjacent, in some cases, niceties,
Yeah.
that's where the education comes in, because there are so many benefits to doing it, not only from a cost standpoint, but from a future standpoint.
Right. No, and that makes sense. What's a typical time frame for a project look like?
1 day to 2.5 years. I mean,
Wow.
it just depends.
Yeah.
We do everything from a $500 project to a $2 million projects, and we have aspirations of doing much larger, right,
Yeah.
as we continue to grow and build out our business. So typical projects, I can't really answer that because they're all different. They're
Yeah.
all wonderful, and that's a selling point for our team, right? Is this is like Modern Marvels. This is like how it's made. Every day is going to be different.
Love
Every
those shows.
Yeah. Can't say I wasn't a kid nerding out on all of it.
Yeah.
But again, it's something new every day. We solve hard problems and build big things.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do as an industrial engineering solutions provider. And the reason we choose the term solutions is because we don't necessarily know what that makeup will be on our end.
Yeah.
Because we can do everything from just consult to full blown, we can build it for you if you want.
Yeah.
So it's a really,
Full spectrum.
yeah, it's a mix.
Yeah.
And I get that question a lot. And every time I search my guts, it's like, man, the answer's still the same.
Well, that's good.
And one question I was curious about, getting into engineering as a kid, were you more prone to building things? Was that something you were interested in, or did, after college you decided, or while you were in college you decided, hey, I really like the engineering field? What prompted that to you to go that direction?
So my family's been in aviation since I was born. Dad's a card-carrying mechanic, A&P. We were around mechanical things, woodworking my entire life. We got to drive a 1955 Ford F-100 in high school that Dad and I got to rebuild. We'll call it Chick Magnet. But just tinkering with anything mechanical. If it had an engine, if it created a noise and provided power, I was into it. Again, I wanted to be a pilot starting off. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I wanted to be a pilot. Dad taught me about seniority, and I was like, Dad, I'm Top Gun, I'm Maverick. If I'm the best fighter pilot, I want to fly the 747 for a commercial airline.
Yeah.
He's like, good luck, son.
Yeah.
That'll be towards the end of your career, the last couple years. And I was like, that doesn't really make sense for me if I'm the best. So I immediately pivoted into engineering. Went to Ole Miss, got my mechanical engineering degree there, and been solving problems ever since.
Well, cool. Well, Dakota, I think it's a good time for you to give us your thoughts on the bourbon there.
I really like it. I really, really like it. The Bowman Brothers small batch, I've found that I'm just a fan of small batch. I don't know why or what about that process makes me more of a fan of it.
It's the
but they
snob side of it.
Maybe. They just taste better than me. They also cost more. So this one was very, very smooth. I found it had a great wheat flavor to it. Did you pick up on that as well?
Now that you say it, I tasted it.
Yeah. See what I did there? A little reverse
Felt like I was on a
psychology.
wheat field.
Plains of Kansas.
Exactly. I'm going to land it at 9.5 as well, though.
Okay, well, nice. Well, I didn't have to ask him to do the math today, so.
Yeah, I should
So
have made it
thank you.
hard. You could have asked Casey to do it
I
for
hope
us.
I
He
can
could probably
handle
do it in
that
his head.
complex problem.
Well, Casey, what advice would you give someone that's, they have a passion like you for their business and they're wanting to start a business? What advice would you give them?
Pursue it. Pursue it with all of the ambition, energy that you can. Do your planning, do your research, seek mentors, become very acquainted with banking and investment and how money works. Make sure you understand how money works to a high degree. It's a tool that needs to be respected and understood. Make sure you make friends with the appropriate legal side, banking side, etc. But really surround yourself with a good team. Do a lot of planning, a lot of critical thinking to try to solve hard problems before they start, or be prepared for those hard problems. But really, if you got a passion for it, take your time and really think it and map it out. Get on a whiteboard, whatever medium you prefer, really think it through. Not only on day one, but on 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, and go ahead and flush out a 10 and 15 just to give you some type of trajectory as you get out across the board in time, right? It's not easy, but nothing good ever is. It's stressful at times. The benefits are there, but make no mistake about it, you have to work for it. Yeah. It is not given to you. And business is tough. Business is aggressive. It is unfair. So is life. Be prepared for it, because it's not like you start a business and then, oh, I'm a business owner. Right. I mean, anybody can be a business owner and entrepreneur. What you want to be is successful in that. Right. And it all comes down to having a good, solid, thought out plan and then executing that plan.
You get a book or something.
I know. I felt like
fantastic.
I was listening to Nick Saban.
I know. I was ready to go run through a wall, man. I'm ready to do it. Let's do it.
Well, also tell our listeners, if there's someone out there that needs your service, what is the best way for them to contact your company? You
can get on our website. Our phone number is there. My cell phone number is 901-574-3403 for a quick little plug. But you can get on our website and get in contact with us. You can follow us on LinkedIn.
What is your website?
Our website's chiefengineering.us.
All right, good deal. Well, to all our listeners, however you stream this podcast, if you will give us a follow on social media and give us a rating where you stream it, and the reverse order that I just told you, and we'll see you next week. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
If you have any feedback or would like to be featured, reach out to us at bourbonandbusinesspodcast@gmail.com.
Or find us on Instagram at Bourbon and Business Podcast.
Thanks again for listening.
Follow us for more content and info on the next episode.